All right, so following some questions or discussions on Facebook, I decided to create another video about how to recreate that, Katy Hearn website effect where we have a scroll here with the background here with a video and with the menu here that is sticky. Okay, so I already created a video on that. I won't do it again. But I decided to show you a different way to do the same thing. So this is similar to what we have on Katy Hearn's website. Um, but I'm going to show you a different way of achieving a similar effect. In fact, it may be even better because it's more responsive. This one is not that responsive. And you can even animate it. So we're going to do the same thing, but with a revolution slider at the top instead. So this is the final one, the final example. I'm going to add maybe a couple of other things on each side. As you can see, it's not as complete, not because we're not able to. It's just because I want to cut short on things that are easy to do. So let's see how to do that using ProStyler. So first thing, I'm going to create a slider, and I have the latest version here, which is 5.2.6 right now. So when you install ProStyler, it's going to install, I think it's 4.6.23 or something like that, or 63. Anyway, so you will need to, well, not need, but if you want to have the exact same view as I have, you can do that with the older version as well. But it's going to be, the steps are going to be different, and the look of the software itself is different. So if you go there, if you install it and you come here, you will see that there's a link to download what it said to be the latest version, but it downloads the 509. So 509 will allow you to do the same thing as I did here, but the look might be a little bit different again. I have, from my experience, if you upgrade this way, and then you want to come and upgrade to the latest version, it doesn't seem to be possible. So if you've already upgraded to 509, maybe you can just uninstall Revolution Slider, first deactivate it, then uninstall, and it will tell you that it needs to be installed again. So you reinstall it and it will install the older version again. Then you can come to the install plugin, and at this place you will see a link to say update Revolution Slider. So you'll be able to click on that and update it to the latest version, which is 5.2.6 for now. Okay, so that seems to be the good way. At some point, with where I already had sliders installed, that's probably the reason why I wasn't able to uninstall 509, reinstall the older one, and then upgrade. It seemed to create bug. It was installing it, but when I was trying to work with it, some bugs were there. So some features were not available when I click on some places and so on. So if it's the case, then just upgrade to 509. It should be similar to this one. But if it's a brand new installation, then 5.2.6 should work fine. All right, so let's go with a new slider. So I'm going to click a new slider here. It's going to be a default slider, and what I'm going to use is a background, a video background. In my case, I'm going to use a link, but you can use a YouTube or Vimeo, but don't use these ones. Like it says here, this is a video stream. If it's you have a channel and you want to have many videos play in, but if you just want to play one video, you don't use YouTube or Vimeo stream. You just use a default regular slider. So I'm going to call that video. I need to give it a slug as well. We can specify a standard slider. It will work, but it will probably load arrows and things like that for nothing, even if it doesn't show, because we're going to have just one slide. In our case, we want to have the video playing into the background. So I'm going to go with the hero scene instead. When you have just one slide, it might be a good idea to go with this one. The layout, I'm going to keep it to auto, but we can say full width or full screen, but for our example, it's going to be auto. And we decide then the default layout that we want. Since my image is a certain dimension, which is 612 pixels, the image that I have here, I'm going to go with a little bit slightly more than that. Let's say 650 to have some space at the top. And the width, it's really up to you. Okay, but of course it's gonna redimension if you have a responsive layout, of course. So in my case, I'm gonna say 1600 because that's the resolution that I have right now on my screen. But you might want to go with 1920 or something like that, because of course it will not necessarily be perfect. You'll see that later on. But when we have a way bigger screen, again, it might have some little issues. We won't have those issues with smaller screen. So you might want to go with a higher resolution than that. For the other sizes, it will dimension automatically, auto sizes. Okay, but if you want to specify, let's say for example, some texts are too small and you want to change it, you can just click on custom grid here and specify a dimension, and it will add a button for you. So let me just show that to you quickly. I'm going to come back to that later on. I'm going to click save, and it's going to take me directly to my slide. And when you enable the custom size, you will see two icons here, one for the desktop and one for the size that you specified, in this case the mobile. Okay, so you will be able to see what it looks like and specify different settings for different view. So again, if I come back to my slider setting, if I enable all of them, let's say I click custom grid for each size, sorry. Again, I'm going to have multiple icons here that will allow me to specify my slide for each dimension, sorry. So as you can see here, we have 4. Okay, so in this particular case, I don't really need that, so I'm going to come back and put them back to the custom, not the custom, but the automatic one. And also when I'm there, I'm going to select those. You can hide the overflow. Okay, so that means that it will, it might cut a little bit of your video. So it really depends on your dimension, really depends on what you want. And you might want to keep the aspect ratio as well, so it doesn't distort the video. So make some tests. Okay, make some tests with or without that enabled. In my case, I'm going to enable them, but it really depends on your video. Okay, so I'm going to save that. And now I'm going to edit my slide. So there's always one slide by default, which is transparent. Now I can always add a video here, by the way, but since we want to put some images, some text on top of it, I'm going to use a background video instead. So I'm going to come here at the top, and in my main background here, I'm going to select an HTML5 video. In my case, could be YouTube or Vimeo as well. But if you have it hosted on your server, or in my case, I have a link, it's going to be an HTML5 video. So let me get the link here. That's the link from the original website, so that's why I'm putting it there. And I'm going to specify the WebM as well. If you want that to be able for all the browser, it's a good idea to create a WebM and OGV versions and specify them as well here. Now, even if I turn off the force cover, I think it will not allow me to save it. So I don't know why. So you might probably want to create an image for cover image, because this is what will appear before the video loads. And if for any reason the video doesn't load, that image will stay in the background. So I don't have any in my case. Okay, I could take one of those, but it's going to be pretty similar to the image that's going to be on top. So a good idea would be to use that logo. This one is pretty small, so I would create a bigger logo, but that's really up to you. So I'm going to use this one for for now. If I say save slide, I can preview it, and you're going to see the logo will appear before the video loads. Okay, so this is my video, a different resolution. All right, so that's okay for the video right now. For my general slide, we have some general settings. We have a fade-in animation that for the beginning that lasts 300 milliseconds, so 3/10 of a second. You can change that. You can remove it if you want to. I think I'm going to leave it like that. And now really what's on the slide, okay, it depends on your resolution again, but it's not necessarily big enough to view all, and I didn't find any zoom option, so that might be one. I don't know revolution slider that much, so didn't see any way to zoom in and out. So anyway, I'm gonna add a new layer. So I'm gonna start with my video, not video, sorry, but my image. I already have my video. So this is the image that's gonna be on top. And I'm going to click here to put it aligned to the center and to the bottom of my slide. And it's gonna always put 10 pixel by default from the bottom. And in this case, since my image is cut, I want to really have everything to 0. So it's an offset. So that's the offset from the bottom, since I'm aligned at the bottom. So I'm going to leave it to 0 in this case. It doesn't seem to be centered because in fact my slide is 1600 pixel and not 1300 that I can see here. Now if I want to do that same effect, by the way, as in the first video or this one, I will need to have a kind of overlay on top of it, and this is what can cause some problem at some points, but I'm going to create one anyway. So I could add an image or anything, but there's a shape here that I can add in this case. So it's going to be the easiest way. So I'm going to add a shape. The color was this one and with some opacity. So I'm going to put that color as the background. Opacity was 0.75. I don't want any border, so I'll leave that to 0. It's set to 0 anyway. I can set it to full width and full height. Okay, but it's going to put a certain dimension anyway, so I'll have to change it later on. So as you can see, it's not even in the corner by default. So I'm going to put that to 0, 0. And this dimension will not be enough. Okay, it will be enough for now. I'm going to check later on, but I will probably have to resize that for bigger screens. If not, it will not cover the entire video when it resize. It will for a smaller video, but not for a bigger video. So you might want to put a higher number here. That's just for the green area anyway, so it will be cut if it's bigger than the actual area. So there's no problem with that. Now it's on top, by the way, so the as soon as we add something, it's going to be under here, but this is the number that is important, what we call the z-index. The higher the number, the more on top it is. So that shape needs to be in the background to have every other things on top of it. Okay, I'm going to name that image Katy. And I'm going to add some other images as well, like the logo, for example. So add a new image. This one's going to be centered as well. So easiest way here, center, center. And of course, since we're using revolution slider, then we can add some animation, which was not the case with the other way of doing things. So that's a pretty cool thing. I can click on the pencil here to decide when I want to start and end that slide, and the animation speed for the intro and outro. Okay, so by default the animation is always, if I come here to my animation, it's always a fade in and a fade out, as you can see. Okay, so now this is my bigger image that I selected. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to simply use a slide from bottom, let's say. Here we go. So it will slide like that. 2 seconds, maybe a little bit slow. I think I'm gonna keep it that way since the video takes a second or two to load anyway. There won't be any fade out though, so I'm gonna leave that to no animation, and it's gonna be okay like that. Same thing for the logo. Okay, you might want to add an animation, and maybe it's a good idea to start that animation. I'm gonna leave it at fade, but I'm gonna do that after this one has finished the animation. So I'm gonna start it at, instead of 5 seconds, the other one takes 2 seconds to load and starts at 500. So let's say 3000, so that it doesn't load right after the other one. So let's play that to see what it will look like. Here we go. So by default it lasts 9 seconds, by the way, but doesn't really matter since we have just one slide, so it won't loop or anything. It won't go to the other slide. So again, I could add other stuff like the text that is at the bottom here. So I don't remember exactly the text: dream, believe, achieve. So I could use that: dream, believe, achieve. And usually I would put two texts because the other one is smaller than the first line. So it's easier to put two separate texts to do that because we can only specify the font size for the entire group. But for now, just to make it simple and short, I'm going to simply put a BR tag here. This is HTML, it supports HTML. And I'm going to put my other text, Katy Hearn. Here we go. And I'm going to simply say that this is going to be centered. The alignment is going to be centered, so I think I'm going to need that, yeah. So alignment here, center. So I need to click that advanced style here. And well, the position will be near the bottom, so bottom left, but not that close to the bottom. So I'm gonna change that a little bit. Let's say 50 from the bottom and 20 from the left. And here we go. So you can change that as you wish, of course. So this one starts at the same time as the logo. Okay, again by default a fade in effect. If you want, you can remove it, of course, if you prefer. So let's keep it that way. Don't want to spend too much time on the creation of the slide itself. Gonna save that, preview, and that's pretty cool. Video seems to load only after the animation, by the way, so that's not a big deal. Now let's go to my page to insert my stuff. So I have my home page. I created another one for the revolution slider and take the liberty to modify it a little bit from the first video. So I'm going to start right there, where if you don't know what I have here, just look at the first video. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to add my revolution slider right inside that element here. So insert element, revolution slider. I just need to select my video. It's full width. For a reason I don't know, it doesn't seem to work when I use container width. So maybe I have to check something. I don't want my info box, so click that to no. And I'm gonna save that. Notice that there's no spacer here. We're gonna come back for that after. I just wanna do that for now. Save it. Refresh my page with the new animation. And that's the easiest that we can do. There's a white space here, by the way, because I forgot to remove the bottom margin that is there by default. Refresh, and here we go. That's the easiest one that we can do. And now if I show you, it is responsive as well. Okay, so I will need to, I don't know if it's gonna work if I refresh. So this one is not, the image is a little bit too big, so that's not the best responsiveness that I have seen because of that background image. But anyway, you can see that it is responsive, though it might need some improvement here and there. And that's just an emulator, by the way, so it might be a little bit different than the real one. I don't know why that box is always there. It should be in the white area here, so it won't look like that in the final result, of course. So just to show you maybe the incognito window with the same. So the image gets a little bit cut, so maybe I should put more than 650 pixels. But anyway, again, I'm going to change that anyway in a few minutes because right now it is working as expected. It is pretty easy, but everything scrolls. Okay, we don't have that effect of the background staying at the same place and the content of the page sliding on top of it. So that's perfectly fine if you want just a basic solution. But if you want to go the extra mile and create that same effect that we have here, I'm going to do that with you. So first of all, my revolution slider, I'm going to add a little ID to it to make it more easy to control. So I'm going to go into the styling and I'm going to call that hero. So for those of you who have watched the first video, you might remember why we use that. And on the first one here, well, I don't really need more than that. So I'm going to go inside my custom CSS here, and I'm going to say number sign for an ID, hero, and then open my curly brace, and I'm going to say position, colon, fixed, semicolon, and then I close my curly brace, save that. Save my page. And now something will go wrong. You will see. When we have something with position fix, it's out of the flow. So we need to push that content down. We see it a little bit under here. We need to push that content down, just like we did here, so that we can see the video and the image in the background. So now I'm gonna add another, I could add a spacer in this one, but spacer cannot have any ID or class or anything like that, so it's going to be a little bit harder to manipulate. So what I'm going to do instead, I'm going to create another subrow because in this particular case I was using subrow. Since my video was not a background anymore, I wouldn't really need to do that, but let's go it that way since it's already like that. I'm going to add a subrow here and move it near the top, or at the top of the sub rows. And I'm going to add, first of all, an ID to it before I forget. And I'm going to call that spacer. And the reason I use an ID, I won't use CSS on it, but I'm going to use some code that you're going to see later on. I'm going to remove every space here. And well, it's box, but anyway, that's a spacer, so you can put full or not. That's really up to you. There's nothing visible inside of that anyway. So click save, and I'm going to insert a spacer. Now the problem with spacer is that it is a fixed space. Okay, it's always in pixel. So from testing, my real value here is 560. Depending on the size of my image and so on. So I'm going to leave it like that for now to show you how it works, but I'm going to come back later on that topic. So let's save that, and that should push my content down enough so that I can see my slider in the complete dimension, at least at that resolution. Okay, and now my fixed effect is working. Now the problem that I have, that's why I put a CSS on it, an ID on it, sorry. Like I mentioned, it's a fixed pixel. So if I try to go with a different device with a different dimension, let's refresh that. You see that the 560 is always there, but here, of course, the height of the slider is not the same. So I don't need the same amount of space here. So in other words, this is not responsive right now. Okay, it doesn't adapt to the size of the screen. So the slider does, but not the space here. So that's pretty strange to have a big space like that. So in order to solve that, I've created a little script here that will allow you to make that spacer responsive. So I'm going to select, first of all, I'm going to come here and inside my PS general settings. And that's why I use the ID spacer. You're going to see why. I'm going to come here, and where it says Google Analytics or any JavaScript, I'm going to paste it there. So now let me explain it to you really quickly. Okay, I'm creating here what we call a variable. This is simply a container that will hold the value. And I'm using jQuery because jQuery is loaded to retrieve my revolution slider wrapper. So this is automatically created by revolution slider when you use it. And it's going to be the size of the content inside of it. So it depends, of course, on the size of the page itself. It changes always. So let me show that to you. I'm going to put a little alert temporary here to output the value here of my height. Okay, so I'm going to save that. And you will see a little pop-up appear when I refresh. It tells me now that it's 650. So that's my full height that I had when I created my slider. Okay. But if I have a smaller screen, okay, let's say for the iPad, I'm going to refresh again. Now it's 312 pixels of height. And of course, again, if I change my resolution, same thing, it's going to be a lot smaller. Okay, so I need to adjust the space with that. So that little alert here is just to output the value. I won't keep it, of course. I don't want that alert every time that people see my page. So now I'm targeting my spacer that I created. It automatically created the class called WR element spacer. It was automatically created when using a spacer, and there's a div inside of it, and that's the div that has the actual height that we put on the page. Okay, when we created the page, the spacer. So I target that element, and I say use the height of the revolution slider height, which is that line here. So for example, for the first one, it's 650. And remove 78 pixels out of it. So why 78 pixels? I don't know. I just did some try and error. That's to remove more white space, probably space left for maybe revolution slider buttons or things like that. So I needed to remove that 78 pixels. So you might need to change that value on your slider. You will see if the slider is cut or if it has a white space. You might need to change the value here. Okay, so that's the number of pixel or space between my slider and the other content, in this case the navigation bar. So in my case this one was working fine. I'm gonna save that, and again, without the alert, it changes. So now it is more responsive with the different sizes. I need to refresh every time, of course, because the JavaScript is loaded when the page is loaded. So if I change my resolution here, it won't adapt. So I need to rerun the JavaScript again by refreshing my page. So for a reason I don't know, it doesn't load the video here in the background, but on real device it will. That's probably just an emulator problem, because in full size it does load the video, and if I resize after that it keeps the video, but when I do refresh it doesn't. So anyway, on real device it does work fine without any glitch. So hope you found that useful, and if you have any question again, you can always ask them. Thank you.